It's been 13 years since we saw a Final Destination movie in theaters. And though many people believe that the series was canceled, there's actually been a couple of movies in the works for the past few years. One of them is Final Destination, Bloodlines, which is currently in post-production with filming wrapping up at the beginning of this year. And even though it is not going to be a continuation of the franchise like I thought it would be when they first announced it, I think it could actually end up being one of the best entries. The way it's being produced and written is pretty much a reboot, except they're keeping the title of Final Destination, Bloodlines. The story will follow a group of college students who escape from an insane cult, but then find themselves being stalked by its mysterious leader who has a very personal vendetta against one of the kids. To say that the details have been kept under wraps so far would be an understatement. But today, we finally get some new details about the plot. And to celebrate, Ivy got 3 of my craziest theories about what these new details could mean for the film and the franchise as a whole. Now, before we talk about the theories, let's catch everyone up on where things stand with Final Destination. Bloodlines. It's being produced by the original producer of the series, Craig Perry, alongside the director of the second and third films, David Ellis. And yes, while he was directing Final Destination 3. James Wong made a comment that he'd love to direct another entry and that he was unfinished with the franchise. So I guess there's still a chance that he could come back to direct this one, but it doesn't seem likely. We know that the film will star the relatively unknown Henry Hunley in the lead role, along with other new faces such as Joria K. Silo Fernandez, Inanna Sarkis, Jack Glatzel, and more. And of course, because it's a Final Destination movie, there has to be a big name attached to it, right? Well, in this case, that big name is the WWE superstar Becky Lynch, who will make her acting debut in this film. That's it for everything we knew until today. But now, thanks to a new Instagram post from the account of Final Destination, Bloodlines, we can reveal the first official synopsis for the film, which reads: when a young woman accidentally kills her twin sister, she and her friends soon find themselves stalked by a mysterious cult leader with a vendetta. So what does this mean for the film and the franchise? Here are 3 theories. No. 1. This isn't actually the full story. Now, there's no evidence to support this theory at all, but it's just something I had to put out there. Because if this movie truly is just a soft reboot, why would they just make it a brand new story with an original cast and an original character? Instead of trying to tie it into the legacy of the franchise by giving it the same title that fans have known for decades. The only reason I can think of is because they want to keep this movie separate from any future installments that continue the storyline of the previous 6 films. That could mean that this will be the start of a new continuity that will share the same characters and events as the original 6 movies, but it won't directly affect or be affected by what happens in this movie. It would also explain why they brought in the main producer and the director of the first 3 films to work on this one. They're basically setting up a new series alongside the old one. And honestly, that's not a bad idea, considering that this movie seems to have a smaller budget than the previous installments. This may not be the next chapter in the overall Final Destination storyline, but it could become its own thing with its own characters and lore, similar to how the Resident Evil movies are connected to the games but went in their own direction after the first film. If they play their cards right, they could bring in some new fans to the franchise that will stick around for future movies and maybe even spark the interest of some of the older fans as well. No. 2, there will be more than one killer. So, the synopsis says that this female character accidentally kills her twin sister. So I assume that means that she'll be the main target of the cult leader, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's the only person that he's after. Synopsis could just be referring to her as the main character. The synopsis for Final Destination 2, for example, said, after narrowly escaping a deadly plane crash, a man is stalked to death by a supernatural force, death personified in the form of a hitchhiker. Targeting him for surviving the crash, he should have died, and yet there were multiple characters in that movie that were targeted by the hitchhiker. Alex Browning, his girlfriend, Claire Rivers, and Terry Chaney, who all survived the bus crash that they were supposed to die in. Even though Alex was the protagonist, there were still plenty of deaths surrounding him. And the fact that the synopsis just refers to one of them makes me think that it might be the same case here. So, while I do believe that the main character will be the focus of the story, I think it's safe to assume that there will be more victims throughout the film. Not to mention that the tagline for this movie is "Some debts can never be repaid," which definitely implies that there will be more than one death that needs to be collected on. Number 3, this movie is going to be rated R. Here's where I get a little crazy. Remember when I mentioned that the synopsis for Final Destination 2 referred to the protagonist as a man? It's a small detail, but it could actually be a pretty big deal. You see, in the original Final Destination movie, the protagonist was a high school senior named Alex Browning. But in Final Destination 2, the protagonist was a college student named Alex Browning. Now, it's obvious that these two characters are related, but in the original cut of the film, it was heavily implied that they were brothers. In the theatrical release of Final Destination 2, it was changed to them just being friends who happened to have the same name. But in the unrated version of the film, the brotherly relationship is restored and even expanded upon. In fact, it is revealed that the reason Alex helps Claire survive the crash is because he thinks she has his sister. That's not the case, but they are actually half-siblings. That could be a hint that Final Destination. Bloodlines will either ignore the connection between Alex Browning and his brother, or that it will expand upon it. And considering that this movie is set to be produced and directed by the same people who worked on the first 3 movies, it is likely that they will go with the former and use the character in their own storyline separate from the events of the original 6 movies. Not to mention that both Final Destination 2 and 3 had higher body counts than the original, with 8 deaths in each compared to 7 in the first. So it seems that the trend is to add more kills as the series goes on. And what better way to increase the body count than to introduce a new character that will allow the writers to kill off multiple people in creative ways. Not to mention that they've already assembled an ensemble cast of relatively unknown actors. So if they want to draw in some more viewers, introducing a familiar face might help. Of course, this is all speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's fun to think about how they could possibly incorporate this character into the overall narrative of the franchise. But now, I want to hear your thoughts. What are your predictions for Final Destination? Bloodlines? And do you think that this will be the next chapter in the series, or that it will just be a soft reboot? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.